everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm thrilled you can join us today. We are going to be talking about working with grief by staying connected through letters from the Ungrateful Dead. And this is going to be a fabulous conversation. I know it's going to help so many of us out there as we deal with our grief. But before I introduce us to our guests, I want to do a couple of shout outs. There's lots of exciting things going on that I want to mention to you. One is that Artifacts is having a study that is now open for people 65 years old, and it's on brain health on your mind. And it's very, very easy to participate in this. You can email them at brainhealth@artifacts.com, or you can call them for more information at 844-278-4328. And we'll have all this information in the show notes for you. I also want to encourage people to check out Alzheimer Speaks and go to all of our free educational resources, as well as our sister company, DementiaMap.com, where you can find all kinds of resources around the world. It's free to use. We're not going to ask you for any personal information. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you to our guests. And last, I want to introduce you to Twiddle. Twiddle has sensory stimulation aids, which are absolutely wonderful. They're ideal when people are sundowning or agitated, just a little anxious, keeping the calm and the peace. They also have a product called Adapt Wrap, which is a wonderful garment, and they don't have to raise their arms. It's real good for people with mobility issues. You can go to the number 4twiddles.com for more information. And if you put in AS25, you'll get a 25% discount. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you to our guest today. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to have you guys all with us today. This topic is so important to people all around the world. You know, grief is such a major, major struggle for people, and something that people don't like to talk about. But we have to if we're going to move through it and if we're going to support one another. And so I'm really thankful to have the three of you with us today to be able to give people some ideas and techniques and just that authentic process of what it feels like, and that it's okay to have these emotions that, you know, waver up and down. So first of all, thank you for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves because you can do a much better job than I can. So Deborah, if you want to go ahead and start.
Yes. So I'm Deborah Shouse, and I'm the author of a new nonfiction book, Letters from the Ungrateful Dead, which Lori was referencing when she talked about grief. And also, both my partner Ron and I have a lot of experience working with care partners of people who are living with dementia. So we are ultra excited to be here with Lori and talking to you all about this important topic.
Thank you. And Ron, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ron Zoglin, professional storyteller and partner to my darling Deborah. Our relationship to dementia is now threefold. She had one parent with dementia. I had two with dementia. And that brought us to you many years ago for a prior podcast with you.
Yeah, Deborah's been on a few times, and same with Ron. So yeah, it's fun to kind of see these friendships grow and see the work and how it spreads. and the different avenues that it takes over the years. So thank you. Jacque, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Jacque Amweg. I'm a social worker, therapist. I work at Kansas City Hospice and Palliative Care in the Solace House Counseling Program. And so in my work throughout the years, I worked at several hospices. And so Alzheimer's, dementia has been something that I've been around quite a bit with clients and families. And some family experience too, caring for someone, my mother-in-law who had Alzheimer's, and in our home for about a year. And so that was an important experience for me. So, but mostly in my work, with those who are seeking therapy and their family members.
Okay. So each of you has been touched by dementia. So I appreciate you sharing that. Is there any words of wisdom or thoughts that you want to share and go a little bit deeper on that? If not, we'll kind of go right into our questions. And Jacque, I'll go to you first.
Well, I think that, in my experience with dementia, I think we think that if we look at what is ahead in dementia, we don't think we could handle, we don't think we could do what other people are doing. And I think that's one of the things that has really come to me is that over time, we can do more than we expect we can do. We are gradually introduced to the needs and the experience of living with someone or being with someone. And I think that's one of the messages that really comes to me is that we are more capable than we believe we are. We can handle and we can learn more than we think we can.
Oh, I so agree. And grief comes in so many different colors. I mean, grief is what adjustment in life is all about. It's about loss and, things not going our way and us having to apply. And when we look at life in that versus just a life or death grief, because I think that adds a whole nother level where it really adds even more scary. But that's what life is. It's just a package, wrapped in challenges and coming and learning lessons.
I think that's such an important thing is that, living with dementia with a family member, there are a lot of losses. There's, loss of abilities and loss of memories and so we grieve all those things along the way and relationships and intimacy. I mean, just so many things that can be lost along the way. So we are grieving, whether we look at it as that or name it that or not. Really, there's a lot of grief involved in those experiences.
Thank you. Ron, you want to go next? Is there anything you'd like to add about dementia?
I think it's been expressed pretty well by the three of you and very much correlates with my experience.
Deborah?
Well, I love what each of you said about these the losses and that's part of life. And one of the things getting to be with you, Lori, has made me think of is how similar the book I wrote in honor of my mom, who was living with dementia, Love in the Land of Dementia, in many ways is with this book I just wrote, which is the loss of my adult daughter. Very different circumstances, but united by two things: love and a burning quest to stay connected. With my mom, it was a quest to stay connected with her throughout her life. And that quest really helped me in the adaptability that Jacque was describing. And with my daughter, who had a sudden death, that quest was to stay connected with her after her life on earth. And so just getting to be on your show has made me put those two together in an interesting way that sort of expanded my personal notion of what it is to be grieving and alive.
Okay, thank you. I want to start out with you, Deborah, about what inspired you to write this book, Letters from the Ungrateful Dead. The title is, for me, I'm 65, so it brings me back to the music theme of the Grateful Dead and the bands and stuff right away. But I just think the title it just kind of makes my mind spin of where's this going and how is this connected? Because ungrateful is not something that we like to talk about either. It's just as uncomfortable as grief, because we want to be nice, and that doesn't sound necessarily nice, but yet it's a reality, and sometimes something that we feel, that people aren't grateful, or there's a misunderstanding in communication. I mean, to me, it just opens up so many doors. So I think the title is a wonderful, in terms of just saying this is an open plate, and I want to explore it all. What inspired you?
Well, thank you, Lori. My grief inspired me. When my daughter died suddenly of an overdose of meth and fentanyl, and I didn't even know she was taking drugs. So I spent some months in like total numbness. And then a friend said to me, I think you need a grief therapist. And I said, I know I need a grief therapist, but I'm too sad to go find one. And she connected me with Jacque. And that's one reason I'm so thrilled Jacque is here today with us. And so when I went to see Jacque, she learned I was a writer, and she said, why don't you write letters to your daughter? And I went, okay. And then she said, and why don't you have her write back to you? And at first I thought, what is she talking about? She explained to me, she said, just try it. Just go home and quiet your mind and see what happens. And so I was really desperate at that point to feel some connection with Hailey. Hailey had been a very complicated person, often difficult to communicate with. She had a lot of addiction and mental health issues. She was brilliant and interesting, but angry with me a lot of the time. So I tried it. I went home, and in the morning, I woke up and I just wrote my heart out to Hailey about how sad I was and how much I missed her. And then I quieted my mind, and I was at the keyboard, and I heard Hailey's voice in my head, and I wrote down everything she said. And that was the beginning of our correspondence. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And Hailey is the person that gave me the title for the book. And that Hailey has quite a wicked little sense of humor. And that was one of the things I most missed. That was a real connecting point for the two of us. And I thought, when someone really gets your sense of humor, it's a big deal. I thought, who is going to get my particular sense of humor? And I could always make Hailey laugh, even when she was mad at me. So that was an extra bonus from writing the letters.
Wow. I can't imagine the pushback you probably got from some people thinking, how are you really connecting with her? And I mean, because I'm a very spiritual person, and so I've had that happen. But I believe it on the deepest level that we are connected, and so many levels that we don't even know are possible. And we do have to kind of get our ego out of the way and quiet our mind and just be present in order to receive those communications. What was it like for you when it first happened to you? I mean, were you surprised? Were you shocked? Were you excited? Were you sad? Were you angry? Were you numb? What were you?
I had a range of emotions. First of all, I had received one long email from Hailey probably in the last 20 years. So she texted me, I never had received a letter from her. So to have her, speaking to me and me taking dictation was astonishing. And it was her voice from the very beginning. So I was delighted to be hearing from her. And also writing the letters made me really sad. So it was a bit hard on Ron because I'd wake up early and I'd write to Hailey and she'd write back. And then I'd be really gloomy for about an hour. I mean, I'd just be, ah. And not just because it brought up so much for me, so much of the loss, but as you said, Lori, we need that feeling, a permission for those emotions. And that is one of the things that both Ron and Jacque helped me with, is to give myself a lot of permission to feel my feelings over this very deep loss. But it's quite an experience writing back and forth with Hailey for me. And it grew into the relationship I had always wanted to have with Hailey, but couldn't because so much baggage was between us on Earth.
Wow. That's a beautiful healing. Now, initially, it sounds like Jacque knew, Ron knew. Did you tell others you were doing this, or were you kind of just keeping this in the threesome of you guys?
Well, it was strange because I did tell not that many people, but everybody I told was pretty casual about it. Nobody looked at me like I was crazy, and that gave me a lot of confidence. That yes, of course you're writing to your daughter. I mean, I did say it once at a table full of strangers, and that didn't work out very well. And I learned, I was experimenting, with talking about my grief. And I thought, okay, not a good way to do it. I need to ease people into this conversation a little bit more.
Yeah, it is an interesting process when you're on different spiritual planes.
Yes.
People's perception and the fear that I find that they have of, could that be possible? And it kind of bucks their norm. So I'm glad that you had wonderful support and then kind of tiptoed into the greater realm there. Jacque, your specialty is really helping people through their grief. How did you learn about writing? And what brought you into that realm itself?
Well, as we help people who are grieving, as a grief support specialist, that was it was a natural transition to me to think about, because we recommend journaling, we recommend writing down our thoughts, we recommend writing gratitude. And so when I learned that Deborah was an author and she liked to write, she was driven to write. It just seemed like a natural path for her. But it's, I think what you said earlier is so true, that grief, people don't want to talk about grief, and it just seems so hard and so painful for people to hear and for people to think about sharing. And often people, and Deborah too, have said, I don't want to, burden someone with my grief, with my experience, and I don't know that, I think so many people feel like it's not a burden. It's an honor to receive someone's experiencing their grief, but it is, our society is really death averse and grief averse. So we aren't very good at that, but it just makes total sense that this was a healing path. And I just had goosebumps listening to Deborah tell about her first experience writing that, and several times throughout the process as she shared some of her writing with me and Hailey's writing, that connection that's so important. And sometimes people have a difficult relationship with someone who's died, and they feel like they've lost the chance to heal that. And so that can be a helpful thing, to write a letter to that person as a way of healing a relationship, or apologizing, or explanation, or some undone thing that's happened in their life. So it's been something that is it's a recommendation in grief that we often talk about, but Deborah took it to the next level.
That's our Deborah. Kind of what she does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys connected because again, I think this is such an important topic. I do think that people are, they're scared about this. But like you said, it's a privilege and it's an honor, to be with someone when they pass, to be able to communicate kind of beyond the realms of our little square box of what our beliefs are, and really be able to open up. And I think once people experience that, they go to another level of authenticity of life in living, and they I think some of the judgment goes away and the acceptance is there, and they're just more open to learning, and it takes the scary out. I've heard so many stories over the years of, and it could be all kinds of stories where people have talked about anything from getting divorced and being very honest and open about it to death and whatever. And people come up kind of on the side afterwards going, thank you. I, I was feeling the same way, but I didn't think I could do that. I've never seen anybody do that, and people need role models, and they need to know that it's healthy and it's okay. And there are others out there that will accept this and not look at them sideways. And so I think these conversations are extremely important. I'm a huge believer that, we can't process emotions if we don't acknowledge them. We have to identify them, we have to feel them. And the writing of the letters is just really acknowledging what you're feeling, what you want to say, all those things that we aren't able to say sometimes. I mean, you look at for years and years and years now, like with AA, people write letters all the time of who they want to go back and apologize to, or whatever they want to say. And how healing that is. And that's been accepted in that group. But a lot of people outside that group don't know the healing powers of those writings, if it's ever given to somebody or not. There's just power in the translation, I think, within ourselves, let alone being able to connect to the other party. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and I can't wait to dive in more. Ron, you're sitting there next to her and seeing this, feeling this. I'm sure, my guess is you're probably an empath too, and feeling a lot of what she's feeling through this whole process. How was it for you? I mean, what were your thoughts when you heard, hey, she's going to be writing letters to Hailey? What was your original thought? I know you're very open-minded and stuff, but what were you expecting?
Oh, I was as surprised as Deborah when she first told me about this. Deborah is, and always has been, as long as I've known her, an extremely resilient person. And I've seen her go through things that would have put me down many times throughout my life. And she just instantly has had the capacity to rise above over and over. But this time it was a little bit different. It was a lot different. The grief really, I think, blindsided her and myself. And my normal empathic way of being with her and communicating with her and offering her comfort was not sufficient to really make much of a shift. And for that reason, I didn't really know what to do. I just, all I could be there is kind of stand by and feel the sadness with her and kind of wait until this amazing idea came along that made a shift that was in a way that neither of us could have ever guessed would work.
If you had to sum up the shift you saw in Deborah, what would that be? And then also, I'd like you to say the same thing for yourself in terms of witnessing that.
The shift was extraordinary, almost from the beginning when she came down and read me one or two of the letters. I could see that something had happened. There was a smile on her face because almost immediately Hailey's personality came out, and the humor in Hailey was such that not only was she smiling, I knew Hailey pretty well too, and it put a smile on my face. And this just continued to grow. But it wasn't only the humor and playfulness. The next letter, the next day, and never knew what was going to come in the next letter, could be extremely sad. And it just gave her the opportunity to feel. And really, one of the great things was when Deborah asked me to start reading some of these letters to her and to watch her experience through my reading to her and being with her in communion, the difference between just holding all that grief inside and allowing it to emerge was just beautiful.
Is it possible? I want to see if you can maybe read a couple of letters for us, but
Sure.
in terms of you being able to see that change in her,
Yeah.
and then was there another level of change that you saw once you were reading them back to her as well then?
I've never thought about that, Lori. Deborah's got something.
I think the letters created this sort of bridge that we could meet on because it was easier for me to write down my grief. And then when I heard Ron reading it back to me, I could experience it on a different level, and he could experience it at the same time, kind of different than me telling him and him wanting to comfort me. This was me just hearing it raw from him and experiencing it on a deeper level. So I think just having that concrete tool that we could both see and share was really incredible for both of us. Because as you said, Lori, sometimes you don't want to talk about your grief, or you want to hide it, or you think, oh, are people sick of me? Am I wallowing? And yet you need it to come out. And so I felt free, and Jacque helped me with this too, to just pour myself onto the page. And then to hear it back to me was pretty extraordinary.
Well, and I think so often in life, lessons are learned by taking, a different bird's eye view of the same situation. And that really allowed you guys to do that. And what an intimate and beautiful release and receive between the both of you with something so important and so impactful, in your lives, to really be able to hear and feel the raw emotion together. I think that's something that we don't openly share. And I think we need to. I think that contributes to a lot of our mental health issues these days, is people not feeling free to be able to do that in a healthy fashion. And so what a beautiful example. Ron, could you read a letter or two to us?
I'd love to. Dear Hailey, less than a week before your birthday. If you were here, you might be in bed all this week, depressed about your advanced age. Or you might let people take you out for pre-birthday celebrations. We would have already discussed several times what gifts you wanted. Probably a combination of money and frothy clothing from Etsy. 48, Hailey. My 48th anniversary of being a mom. Mind-boggling. I'm going to ask Ron to sprinkle some of your ashes in Cascones bushes. My plan for your ash sprinkling focuses on restaurants you like. Sonic, of course, Boling's, Taco Bell, the Thai place, the quick trip near your house, maybe a pizza place. I envisioned a sacred, progressive dinner without the food. But I haven't been able to do that yet. Too final, too emotional. Love, Mom. Dear Mom, a big plus about being dead. I am not anxious or panicked. I am not depressed. I am calm. Of course, that means life's not too interesting, but I am trying to be in the flow and see if I can tolerate it. It's hard to stir up drama here. Everyone is sanguine or enlightened. Oh God, what if I'm becoming enlightened? You are entitled to make fun of me if that happens. Remember how I scorned all your suggestions to breathe, think positively, create affirmations, vision my life. I thought those things were so stupid. And then I went to that cognitive behavioral therapy class. They were into that, and since I had to do my homework, I was trying to be more normal. I started doing affirmations. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Dear Hailey, I had such hopes for that behavioral class that it would help you. I always expected great results the few times you agreed to therapy. Love, Mom. Dear Mom, you always wanted to change me. Bad idea. Love, Hailey.
Wow, those are so moving and so deep, and yet, like you said, the humor, the relationship, the pangs of just wanting to be who you want to be and want to be accepted, and the hopes and dreams we have for others, all wrapped up in that, and being able to talk and communicate just openly on that. I can't imagine how freeing. I'm going to get emotional. That was
Good. Me too. Yeah.
quite beautiful.
Thank you, Lori. And Lori, you're so right. It was so freeing to be able to express some of these feelings to someone I love so much, but who often didn't want to hear the feelings. It was hard for her. So thank you for your beautiful response. I feel the same way.
Well, and I love when she said, it's kind of hard to kick up some drama over here. Because
that's my girl.
There's so many people in this world. I mean, I can name off many that I know that is their goal in the world, is just to kick up the dust and yes, and purposely distance themselves, kick up the dust and then leave. I got them all riled up. They don't know how to fit in. They don't know how to feel some of those other things. It's that soft, those soft feelings are what scares them, I think, a lot of times, being vulnerable. And this brings it to a whole nother level. So thank you for sharing that. Before we go on, I just want to give a shout out to Q for Good. If anyone is looking for a webmaster, I absolutely adore these guys. They are socially conscious. They communicate at a normal person's level, and they actually do what they say and do it in a good, timely fashion. And I love to shout out to people who I think are doing amazing work. And in this day and age of trying to communicate on a level with the internet and all the changes that are going on, I can't give them a higher grade. So if you're looking for somebody, check out qforgood.com. And if you mention my name, you can get a 10% discount off as well on that. So I do also want to mention, with our tribe here we're talking to with Deborah and Ron and Jacque. You can go to Deborah's website, which is deborahshousewrites.com. She is on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and is on Amazon as well. And you can, of course, get to Ron through her, as you can see them sitting together. And for Jacque, she is with caseyhospice.org in Kansas City. And we will have all her contact as well as Ron and Deborah's in the show notes as well. But I really want to get back to this conversation. I'm still dripping from emotions from the letters here, because I just think this stuff is so powerful, and I think it's just so needed for people to, for us to take the scary out of it and show being sad or happy or angry shouldn't scare us. These are normal emotions, and the more raw we get them and the healthier we deal with them, the more light they bring into our life in terms of understanding ourselves and understanding the world as a whole, in terms of taking the scary out. So, Deborah, I want to go back, to you about, your experience writing about loss. You did this, with your prior book, Love in the Land of Dementia, Finding Hope in the Caregiver's Journey. And you had, said that there were some similarities between the two books, and people are probably thinking, how can there be similarities? But, I truly believe grief is grief. And it's, I don't care if you're 2 years old and grieving, or if you're 102 years old and grieving, it all ties together. We just label it and sometimes categorize it different. But I think the processing and the acceptance or the rejection is something that is learned, and something that we can change and overcome. So can you tell us kind of the differences and the similarities between the two books that you felt?
Well, they were motivated actually by the same quest. With my mom, I wanted to have a record of our family's time together during that period, and also of some of my mom's history that's woven into that book. And then my personal goal, once I got through some of the phases of my grief over what my mom was going through, was to, how can I stay connected? And so both of these turned out the same way. With my mom, I had to go to a new way of communicating with her during the process. And that turned out to be a very deep spiritual experience. So my mom was a product of her times. She had had a lot of loss in her life. And she was a very practical, fairly non-demonstrative person, and full of opinions about me. Just like Hailey, but sweeter. And so during our time together, during her dementia journey, as her rational mind let go a little bit, and that sweet, playful part of her came out, we had some beautiful connections together that just, it was like the walls between us, the judgment was gone. And in a very different way, the same thing happened with Hailey. When I started working with Jacque, one of the things I told her, I said, I love my daughter, but I never felt like I could express my love to her because she would manipulate it or use it in an unhealthy way. And so, and Jacque helped me take down that wall, and the letters helped me, because between us, we started being really honest with each other in the way we wrote, and connected on a much deeper level. We could randomly connect when we were alive. Hailey had the capacity to be a very deep communicator, but it was quite random. So I think, and also I wanted to keep Hailey alive. I wanted her to be remembered and chronicle who she was, because she was not your traditional definition of success. And she was an amazing, brilliant, fascinating person. And I wanted that to be written down for her. So that was a similarity to it, but also the gift of sharing both of those different stories with people. I'm just starting to share Hailey's stories, but Ron and I traveled all over sharing some of my stories about Mom, reading them in different cultures. And it was so rewarding to be connecting with people in that way.
Wow, I'm just thinking of Hailey and how it must be for her to be able to receive your words and your thoughts, and how you wanted to honor her when she wasn't able to do that in this realm before. You know, and what a beautiful gift, you know, that is for her, and to find out that all this spirituality stuff isn't as bad as she kind of thought it was, you know, is woo woo and is crazy.
Yeah.
But that there's some peace within all of that. Again, I just think this stuff is so extremely powerful. Ron, are there any other letters that you'd like to read us at all?
I do. Dear Mom, I recently read A Bed with Books on It is Not Unmade. I like the hardback books I have read multiple times. I probably take after Dad in that way. You like paperback books, so you don't have to care for them. But Mom, you really don't have to take care of hardbacks. You can just enjoy them, and they don't mind their spines cracking and their pages doing yoga in the corners. And they love being underlined. It's like having a divine back scratch. I do believe I'm going through this enormous letting go period, shedding mood swings, anxiety, OCD, paranoia, solipsism, great word, huh? Doubt. I have a lot to get rid of, and I'm just beginning. I lay down my imaginary sense of being unloved. I lay down my prickly feelings of anxiety. I throw down my fogging depression, love, and considering laying down my sword and shield, Hailey. Dear Hailey, what would it take for you and me to be totally at ease with each other, to fully forgive each other? I'm not sure of my answer. Over the last couple of years, I have more fully appreciated and accepted you as you are. How about you? Love, Mom. Dear Mom, while I was alive, I never thought about forgiving you or getting closer to you. You were just there, my mother. I could irritate you, be mean to you. I could apologize, and you would forgive me. You were my comfortable armchair that I didn't mind eating chips in or spilling Diet Coke on. But I have more perspective since my, quote, tragic and early demise. I can see all the anger that burned inside me, the self-loathing that poisoned me, the dark sense of worthlessness that no amount of appreciation or praise could erase. No wonder I wanted to lose myself in drugs. I thought you could never understand me because of all I had gone through, because of how different we were. But I didn't give you credit for being an empathetic person. I'm starting to give you more credit now. Love, Hailey.
Wow. I just think of the, you know, when she mentions kind of the shedding and the shifting, and what a release. I just thought of the weight she was carrying, you know,
Yes.
of just not feeling valued or understood. And then, you asking, can we fully forgive? We say we're sorry and it kind of rolls off, but it's not a depth of true forgiveness so often. It's just words that are said to kind of move us along. And I think, to me, that the fully, can we fully forgive, just brings things to a whole nother depth and makes people think, wow, did I really forgive, or am I just saying, I'm sorry? Am I just saying I forgive, but I really haven't forgotten? I'm still burdening that. And then the enlightenment, that she was realizing that her perceptions weren't necessarily reality, of all she was feeling, and the freedom of all. There's just so much of the release and an understanding. And I also love and appreciate the humor, because I think so often people think, death and dying and grief, anything serious, you can't laugh at it. And yet, to me, that's the glue that holds us together, that says we're human and tells us we do have a softer side, and there are connections, and life isn't meant to be perfect, and silliness matters. And it's okay, and I know that, Deborah, you get that in terms of being, a laughter yoga instructor and stuff as well. I mean, it's so powerful and so healing, and I think so often shut out. So again, thank you, both of you, for sharing just these intimate details. Jacque, I want to go to you, because you've seen a lot of people, and you've worked with a lot of people down this journey. Is Deborah's response and through this process, is it normal? Does everyone come through the other side, or do some people just hit a wall and go, this isn't working for me? Because I would imagine everything doesn't work for everyone.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think most people, I mean, we are made to connect with each other, and grief is just it's a natural response to loss, and acknowledging that can just bring so much healing and help people connect with each other. But I think that if someone is coming to see me, they've already taken a step that says, I want to feel better, and I need to explore this, and I need some help. I need, either some advice, some tools, support. So if they've come to me, that's a huge step. Many people don't do that, and they may really withdraw from life, and or they may just step forward and have their own path. I'm not saying everybody needs grief therapy, because not everybody does. I love that quote that says, suffering is a natural response to loss. I mean, people think they shouldn't feel bad. They should not be suffering. It's just such an unusual feeling, and it's very physical. It just feels so unusual and so out of their norm that they think there's something wrong, but really it's the natural response. So I don't know. I just think that people taking steps to continue life and find a way forward is really such a positive thing. You're right. Everyone, Lori, has their own way of getting through it. Some people really need a lot of alone time, and some people really thrive in a group setting where they can explore their grief together and be understood in that way. But I guess that's. I always have hope when I visit with someone. I always approach it with hope, because there is a way through, and most people think that they'll never get through it.
Yeah.
Most people do feel that way.
Well, one of the things that I found through my journey with my mom with dementia and my dad with brain cancer is I would, when I would open up to friends, I would get different advice from them. But sometimes their advice wasn't about me at all in my journey. It was about protecting their emotions because they were so uncomfortable. So I found people going, well, just get over it. It's been a year, it's been a month, it's been whatever it's been, because they just didn't know how to deal with it. So they still wanted to be my friend. So just get over it, Lori.
Yeah. Be the same person I've always loved and had fun around. Don't, go back to that. This grief is hard for me. Your grief is hard for me.
Yeah. That was kind of an eye opener for me. I didn't realize how much people were protecting themselves, especially when I felt I knew them on such a deep level. With many of them being really close, I just never expected that. But when I sat back, it was like, oh, this isn't about me at all. This is about their discomfort.
Yes.
And so I had to really learn to be able to sort that out. I know when my dad died, we were extremely close, and I just looped. I kept looping his death over and over, and I was there with him, and I had my hand on his chest, telling him it was time to go, and I could feel the electricity go up my arm. And I mean, it was a beautiful thing.
Oh, wow.
But I just kept looping with him, and we were very close on this plane. But once he died, I lost that connection, and I felt so vulnerable. I felt so lost, and I was so angry. Like, where did you go?
Yeah, it's a huge empty place. It's, that connection, it is very devastating, and just leaves such an empty place for us to try to figure out. Yeah.
And I think so many people feel that, but they don't express it. They're scared to, because they feel alone. People aren't going to understand. They're going to push away. But, it's kind of like dementia. You don't know what it's like until you experience that journey. And then once you do, it opens up. And I just think people need to talk about it. I think people need to share so that others aren't as scared. Oof.
Yeah, I think we always talk about, expressing in some way. Some people aren't that big of talkers, you might get a sentence or two out of them, but some way to express, whether it's writing or art or building something, or or talking it through, and I think so often we protect each other. You talked about they're protecting themselves, and a lot of times we protect each other too. So I remember a woman telling me that after her husband's death, she had to apologize to her mother for the way she tried to understand her mother, or didn't understand her mother's loss. She said she really minimized it, and told her to, gave her advice and told her, here's what'll help. And she said when she experienced it herself, she said she really knew she had to apologize to her mother, because she didn't know until she knew. And that's what you're saying, is that so sometimes we have to just hear the intention behind someone's words, because they're going to say the wrong thing. And sometimes we just have to be with the friends who can support us. And that's one of the things that we need. There's the supportive friends that we can talk to and they can hear us. And then there's the friends who are, they're going to take us out to lunch and have fun with us. And there's friends that are going to come and help us do things. And, they might not all be the same friend, and not every friend is going to be able to hear our story. But, to be able to, call on what we need in our friends and family, that's an important thing too.
I think that's really important. And again, I think that's another thing we don't talk about. We expect our friends who have always been there to be able to be there, but we all
Mm-hmm.
have different skill sets and different abilities, and to know that it's okay to go here or go there or push away from this if it's not working for us in that
Mm-hmm.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
When my mom died, I should say when my dad died, I ended up taking some intuitive classes, which really helped me a lot in terms of getting, more spiritual and more connected. And then I started getting, more messages. And then by the time my mom died, which was many years later, um, we were communicating before she died, even
Mm-hmm.
though, she would come to me in dreams, and it was
Wonderful.
very, very comforting. I'll still never forget one night she came to me and said, "I'm not staying much longer. You better finish my obit." And at 2 a.m, I popped up and I'm like, okay, let me get on that, she communicated with me that I would not be with her when she died. And I was totally offended because that's who I've always been. I've always helped people transition and be part of that. And she was very clear to me saying, I need to know you're going to continue this work. And the rest of the family needs to be part of the dying process. And they won't do that if you're there. They'll just let you do it. And she was always big, even when we were little, at bringing us to funerals and wakes. And she would get scolded by her friends that we were too little. We had no business being a part of that. And she was like, hey, it's okay for them to be at a birth. They can be at a death. It's the circle of life. And so her personality stayed true to the very, very end, with everything. And even when I was speaking, when she was actively dying, I was able to still communicate with her. I thought I would just talk to her on the phone, and my daughter said, let's do FaceTime. And so we were doing FaceTime through multiple things. And when I went to get up on the stage, I called right before and I said, okay, it's time. I expect you with me. We're in this together. And I tripped going up the stage. I didn't fall, but I tripped, and I looked up, and all I saw was bright white lights like orbs. And the room got really warm, but then it got really chilly. And I talked for 2 hours, and I got down. And then I called again and I said, how's mom doing? And my daughter said, Mom, it was so weird. She said, after you hung up the phone to go speak, Grandma's body got so hot and so red, and we couldn't cool her down. We did everything you told us to. We had the washcloths and the rags and the ice chips, and we just couldn't cool her down. She didn't cool down till about 10 minutes ago. And I said, that's when I got off the stage. And that's when I knew in my knowing that she was present the whole time I spoke. And that was just such a comfort, to me to be able to be that connected with her on that.
How special that you could be, that you could open yourself to that knowing,
Yeah.
it takes some intention and really intuition to be able to receive that. That's lovely.
Yeah, it was pretty special. And then even like when she passed, I came home and I was exhausted after the trip and the funeral, and I went to go to sleep, but I couldn't go to sleep because everybody before my mom died, everyone was getting the Pharrell Williams song Happy. And it was way past its peak, but everyone in our family, friends and other family members were passing this song around. And so after the funeral, I came home and I went to go to sleep, and it was like the band was playing in my bedroom. I mean, it was loud. And I could not sleep the first night. Second night, the same thing. Third night, I said, Mom, I get you're giving me a message. You are happy, and I have to figure out what makes me happy. But I got to get some sleep. It was like she went into another room, and like 2 or 3 times during the night, it was like she opened up the door and I could hear the song. But I was able to sleep. But that was just my mom checking on me, But it was just such a beautiful, just a beautiful gift to be able to have, those types of connections and,
Wow.
not be scared by them. you know, and really look at the beauty and the comfort that they could bring, just like these writings and so many different avenues. Again, I just think it's critical that we have these conversations and we look at the world as a bigger and better place. I think there are so many levels of communication and unconditional love that we're not aware of until we're willing to open ourselves up to it. So I can't thank you guys all enough for this conversation.
Thank you, Lori. Lori, I love hearing more about your mom and your deep relationships with each of your parents. And your beautiful emotion around it. Thank you so much. It's so meaningful to get to hear that.
Thanks. I know people say you shouldn't cry, and it's like, you know what? I am who I am, and I don't really care anymore. If they want to be embarrassed because I'm crying, that's okay. That's on them. You know, I just look at, again, I think emotions are healthy. I think they are. I think they're authentic. I think they're real. And I think the deeper we feel, I think the better people we are when we can be true to ourselves and into our experiences. So
love that.
Jacque, anything you'd like to add in wrapping up at all?
Oh, just I'm just so moved by hearing the letters and just the hearing your story, and it just reminds me of just how much we need each other, and just how important it is to stay connected, and that's where it's at. Love that.
Yeah, we are better together, that's for sure. Ron, anything you'd like to add?
No, so much beauty has been expressed, and I'm reveling in it.
How about you, Deborah?
Well, I just appreciate getting to be together and getting to share our stories with others who might be listening to this, and to just report on how grateful and open I feel from getting to talk and getting to listen on this subject. How meaningful it is, and how, for me, it carries me a long way to get to have these conversations with those who want to have them. So thanks to you all. It's been a magical time together.
Now, you're doing an event coming up. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. On October the 15th, I am having a Zoom launch with my publisher, who you all would love, Thea Rademacher, also a very spiritual and intuitive person. And so we are going to do that. You can visit my website, deborahshousewrites.com, to find out the details on that. It's free, and it's going to be a conversation with Thea and myself about the book and about the letters. So I'd love for anybody who wants to join, and you can also contact me or Ron through my website. We love to hear from people. We love to hear people's stories. So thank you.
Wonderful. And again, you guys are on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn. Book can be on Amazon or the bookshop. Now, Jacque, for you, I know you're in Kansas City. Do you work around the country or just specific in Kansas?
No, just in Kansas City, and I work out of. We have a hospice house, or excuse me, solace house, grief center, and so there's a lot of groups there, and most of what I do is individual, either online or in person, right there at Solace House. So
okay, I just wasn't sure if you could consult with people out of state or not.
I can't provide therapy for people out of state, out of Kansas or Missouri, but I'm I'm open to consultation if anyone has any questions or anything for me.
Sounds good. And again, your website is kchospice.org, and we will have all her contact information listed as well. Well, I hope everyone who was listening today felt the power of this conversation. Needless to say, I did. And I hope that you share it with others. This is just, we have to take the scary out. We have to bring the community back. And we have to find the peace within our range of emotions. And it can be a difficult process, but it can be such a beautiful, peaceful one, just like we heard through the letters. One that gives us peace and allows us to laugh and allows us to, deeply forgive and bring enlightenment to what is possible, and really looking within ourselves of, are our realities really real, to others in our lives? Have we had miscommunications? There's just so much that can be done through the power of openness. And so I wish that for each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you
for your tenderness with this subject.
Well, as always, I ask my audience to be a giver of hope and like and click and share, not because we're chasing numbers, but because we really feel our conversations here need to be heard and shared, because they can help so many. And authentic voices are rare in the world we live in, and yet they are so powerful and magical to so many who listen. So again, thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it very much. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Hey everybody, Jared Sebestier, host of Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. Few people can just flip the switch from working a career 30 or 40 plus years, retiring on Friday, without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.